All right, we are finally going to do a bit of a van tour since I've always gotten a lot of questions about what kind of setup I have in here and basically how I survive year round in Canada, which obviously it gets really cold here. And I want to start by saying this is definitely like what I would call a bit of a budget build, maybe. At least compared to some of the stuff I've seen out there on YouTube and Instagram, where people planned this long ahead of time and, they have like $50,000 to spend on their setup. Which quite frankly, I did not have at the time. This was more of a like need to do situation and not something I had like years of planning for. So I guess we'll get into the cost of everything later. And we're just going to jump right into it, I guess. So we may as well start with the essentials, things like heat, water, electricity, things you actually need, like the non-aesthetic kind of things. So first things first is my diesel heater, which you see behind me is the thermostat and the vent for it, which is very self-explanatory. The thermostat is just like up and down arrows to go high to low. And then the unit itself, if you're not familiar, it's about like this big. I think you can buy bigger versions of it if you have like an RV or a bigger space, but I just have the small one. They only cost a few $100s on Amazon, and I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think you can buy them in stores anywhere. Not in Canada anyways. And then I always recommend to people who are just starting with van life to always have two sources of heat in case the first one fails. So for me personally, I use like basically just a shop space heater that you can just plug in with an extension cord anywhere, which thankfully I do know a few spots that I can do that in town for like emergencies. However, that's not usually the case. So I usually would say get one of it's called a buddy heater. It's about this big. And they take the little green propane canisters that you just screw into it. And they are not safe to use like all the time, overnight, or anything like that. I have literally lit my hair on fire on one of those. Like, they are properly dangerous. It is basically an open flame like element in your van, and it kills the monoxide. So anyways, not enough people talk about that. Which, before I get too sidetracked, have a monoxide detector. So I just pulled this off the ceiling quick to show you guys which one I have, which I highly recommend, is a smoke detector and monoxide detector in one. I know a lot of people who have vans who don't have these and probably think it's a bit excessive, but personally, I've already had mine go off like almost a dozen times probably, and it's always from the monoxide, not the smoke, and usually from cooking, even if I have my door open, my vent fan open, and you think that there's lots of oxygen circulating, but gas stoves and those like gas heaters that I was telling you about, they kill the oxygen in the air really fast in small spaces like this, so you literally just never know what you're getting yourself into. So really good safety feature. Highly recommend caring about safety as well as comfort, which a lot of people don't. And also have a fire extinguisher. Sorry for being such a mom, but I do care about safety a lot, and I highly recommend that since a lot of people kind of leave that out of their van tour videos, and I personally think it's a bit important. But moving on to some less boring stuff. Let's talk about my water setup, which is over here. So I'm just going to turn you guys. So this entire massive cabinet is my water. This side is just the fresh water, and then on this side I have a gray water reservoir. So basically you can see that it's really simple, just two jugs, and then this is just where the gray water tank is, which is the blue one. Ironically, the gray ones are fresh water. The blue one is gray water that you just have to empty by hand manually. And then as you can see, the pump is not connected to the fresh water at the moment, which is this, because all of this plumbing back here has a tendency to freeze in the wintertime and crack, which it already did, and flooded everywhere. But that's the pump that I have, and basically you just put the hose into the freshwater jug, it pumps and filters into the tap, which you can see, another one of my little DIY things. It's just a salad bowl turned into a sink. So this, when it's connected, you can just turn it on like a regular sink, and then you can actually pull it outside to use it as like a shower basically. So yeah, there's that. So next let's get into electrical, which you can already see I have these pot lights wired in above. So the lights and everything else is controlled by this little simple panel here, which you can just switch everything off like that. I have an outdoor light, which is really handy as well. This is just the vent fan. Of course, the water pump, which I just leave turned off in the winter. And then it shows you basically like how much battery health you have, as well as a little 12-volt charger, which I use for my fridge. And then this is just a little phone charger area. And then, of course, you just have the monitor screen, which shows you like your battery health and how much solar power you're getting. And all of that is wired in just behind these drawers. So I'll actually pull out that bottom drawer to show you guys just like what it looks like basically. So drawer out, this is just like the fuse box and where everything is organized into basically. And then the battery is just under there. So I have that really easy access just with the magnet here. And this is where all of that is wired up to, which is 400 watts of solar. And then that's just the vent fan that's currently closed. And I have this nice little kind of patio area just for access and sunbathing. And then I think we'll move into storage, which is honestly like all of that. I have lots. I'm a girl. Try not to judge. But this big one is basically just food stuff. But then the rest of all that is basically just me being a girl. So as soon as I open this, you guys are going to see what I meant by budget build. This is basically all just scrap plywood, if you can tell. It just had like paint on it and all sorts of issues, including a lot of spots you'll see here, like just random nail holes and yeah, just definitely scrap wood. But hey, we saved money, so. And then any cabinets that open easily like this when you drive, make sure you have some sort of latch system. That's what this is for. It's not to lock the food in. It's so that it doesn't go flying when I'm driving. And then these are just basically like miscellaneous drawers. Phone chargers, lots of like accessories, random technology and things like that. We're just gonna skip that. And then these just kind of slide open like that. And I keep all of my clothes in these like plastic cubes because for some reason everything in a van gets dirtier way quicker. But yeah, like all of my bras and underwear up there, tops, all my pants, and it basically just continues through to the other side. And again, with the budget build, these cabinets are super finicky because it's just like wood on wood with like these really cheap little tracks. I don't even know if you can see that, but. And then if we didn't already have enough storage, this entire bench area is also just like excessive gear storage essentially. I keep like extra jackets, outdoor stuff like I just said, dog toys, all the stuff that's just kind of like bulky and big. And then I'm gonna move this. This right here holds the answer to one of my most frequently asked questions. I'm sure you guys can already guess what's in there, but the mighty throne. So believe it or not, I've never actually used this like ever once. It was a like hand-me-down from a previous van owner who said they also never used it. It was just like sitting collecting dust and everything. So for emergencies, it would just slide out and be usable. As you can see, it's dusty. There's stickers on it from the previous owner, but that is just for emergencies. What I actually find more useful, I'm just going to cut myself off real quick before I elaborate too much on that subject, in case there's anyone who just like isn't in the mood to hear about the gross sides of van life. Maybe skip ahead like a minute or two, or if you're eating or anything. But basically, I can only speak for myself because I know that I have a bit of a different way of living than the majority of van lifers that I know. So basically, I'm always off-grid in nature, essentially. With like abundant nature around me and no humans. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and why I've never really had to use that like portable camp toilet. And when I am in town or in a city or anything, I have 2 different gym memberships for like the biggest chains that are all across Canada, and they're both 24/7 gyms where if you have a fob key, you can just like enter 24/7 any hours of the night or anything. So that's also kind of like a foolproof solution that has never failed me. And for worst case comes to worse, if you're somewhere where that's just not an option and you're in a very public area, but like with your van obviously, a good old mason jar. I'm speaking to the ladies, not the dudes, but a mason jar with like a big open top essentially. You can usually find them at like thrift stores and stuff like that for like $2 a piece. So yeah, anyway, moving on. Now, as much as it doesn't really feel right to go straight from that topic into my cooking setup, I didn't plan this very well, so that's what we're gonna do. Pretend this is a smooth transition, and this is where I keep my stove. So this drawer is a prime example of that budget build I was telling you about. Some fine cut wood right there. Just kidding, obviously. And then again with the latches, because this would fly open while I'm driving. And basically this is where I just keep my cooking stuff. So these are two separate stoves. There's a butane one and a propane one. And then I just keep the gas there and everything. And then some random miscellaneous cooking stuff in there. So I guess I'll show you guys what I do. So this is just what I do when it's cold outside. Just right up on the countertop. And then you can turn on the vent fan, which it's very strong and it has outtake as well as intake. And then for summertime, I actually have two different spots that I can set up my stove outside. So I guess I'll show you guys that real quick. So there's one little table on the side door here. It just flips up like that, and then just as easy to put it back down. And then this just closes with a little simple. So this is the back one, and the difference with this table and the other one is that it's just these chains to hold it up instead, which honestly works really well. There's another one on the other side, but super sturdy. And then, of course, obviously the rest is just storage. Like, this is my tools, hiking shoes, all sorts of pretty self-explanatory. And then back here, that is the diesel reservoir for my heater, which it's actually good to keep it on the inside so that it doesn't freeze / gel. And then when you unscrew the top, you can actually just like pull the gas pump through the door right there and fill it straight up into the tank. So super easy. And then yeah, just the rest is basically just storage. And then the bed is actually a full-sized bed, so just a bit smaller than a queen. And it's this bamboo memory foam, so it's actually really, really comfy. And of course, a little bit of decor, always necessary. All right, I think we kind of covered everything, but if you guys do have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments so I can answer them. And also, I promise I'm going to be filming and uploading a lot more very soon. It's just been a little bit of a difficult winter with like the -20 this entire time and stuff, so I honestly just haven't been doing much, let alone doing anything worth filming. So I promise that's about to change now that the weather's getting good. I have lots of adventures planned, and I promise I'm going to bring you guys with me. So thank you for sticking around, and I will see you guys very soon.